Hey there! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we'll tackle the power of a mother's love in Maquia, when the promised flower blooms. This video contains massive spoilers, so viewers, beware. In a distant land, the Iarf live far away from their human counterparts. These humanoid creatures age slower than normal people and can live for hundreds of years. The Iarf also spend their days weaving Hibial, which symbolizes the threads of time itself. Because of their separation from the outside world, they're often called the Clan of Partings. Maquia, a young, orphaned Iarf, serves Racine, the clan's leader. One day, Racine sees Maquia crying. When asked for the reason why, she tells Racine that it's because she feels all alone. Racine reminds her that the reason why they weave Hibial in the first place is to remember the events of the past, and thus, she's never truly alone while weaving the threads. Racine also reminds her to not get attached to people she encounters from the outside world, and to take care not to love anyone, because if she does, she'll know what true loneliness feels like. One night, Maquia sees two of her friends, Krim and Lelia, practically fall in love under the moonlight. When suddenly, the neighboring kingdom of Mezard attacks their peaceful village with winged creatures that resemble dragons called Renato. Maquia tries to find Racine and goes to the weaving room. The Iarf protect the Hibial and quickly close the room, trapping Maquia inside. The chief of the armed soldiers, Iser, asks for Racine and questions her on the secret to their long lives. Iser and the rest of the armed men capture the women from the village. Meanwhile, a Renato has run amok because of the red-eye disease and inadvertently crashes inside the Hibial room. Maquia, still trapped inside, gets herself entangled in the fabric as the Renato flies away from the scene. The Renato crashes into the woods and dies. Luckily, the Hibial saves Maquia from getting hurt, but she gets lost in the woods as a result. Maquia continues on her journey, eventually coming across a settlement area. She hears a child crying inside and enters one of the caravans to get a closer look. Here, she meets a man who immediately recognizes her. The man says that he came to the area to buy Hibial, but he found the place had been ransacked by thieves. Unable to leave the crying child in his deceased mother's arms, she takes in the kid and raises it as her own, naming him Ariel. Maquia makes her way to a nearby village where she's taken in by another woman, Mido. Mido helps her get a job at a nearby shop as a weaver. The owner, Daryl, immediately recognizes her as an Iarf, but still agrees to keep her identity a secret. Maquia eventually settles into this new life with Mido and her two sons, Lang and Dial. Years pass, and Ariel has grown into a toddler. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Mezard, Iser reports that their Renato are slowly dwindling in numbers. The king's advisors tell them that once they lose the Renato, they'll also lose control over their kingdom and the cities they've already conquered. The king tells them that they have a new power to rely on, and that's the long life from the Iarf bloodline. We then cut to Lelia in fancy garbs and discover that she has been chosen as a bride for Prince Hazel. Back in the Helm village, Ariel is now a young boy who can weave his own fabric. However, Ariel gets teased a lot by the village children because he and his mom are different. Back in the shop where she works, Daryl gives Maquia fabric with a secret encoded message from a fellow Iarf. Once she reads it, she discovers Lelia's current predicament. She makes the decision to take a trip with Ariel to free her friend. On the ship, she sees Krim in hiding. He tells her that the Mezard are after the secrets of the Iarf, and the king is seeking to introduce longevity into the royal bloodline. Maquia joins Krim and the other Iarf in attempting to rescue Lelia. During the royal parade, Krim attacks one of the Renato, which lets Maquia see Lelia for a brief moment. However, Lelia tells her that she's pregnant and instructs Maquia to flee before the guards catch her. Maquia manages to escape with the help of the drunkard from before, who reveals himself as half Iarf. Maquia returns to their hideout and sees Krim looking forlorn about the recent turn of events. The following morning, Krim gives Maquia a fabric with a secret message. He tells her that the rest of the Iarf will stay in Mezard to rescue Lelia, leaving Maquia and Ariel on their own. With no other choice, the mother and son duo eventually make their way to an industrial city called Dorel inside Mezard. In this new life, Maquia works as a restaurant waitress. Meanwhile, Ariel has grown up into a teenager who does forging work for the city. Because of the increasing difference in their age and appearance, Ariel grows distant from his mom. One day, Maquia and Ariel meet Lang after a long time of separation. Lang seems to sense the distance between her and her son. She tells him that around 5 years ago, he stopped calling her mom after realizing that they're not blood related. Elsewhere, Lelia's child, Medmel, has grown into a young princess. Lelia, on the other hand, is imprisoned and unable to meet her daughter because Medmel doesn't look like an Eirf, nor does she show any sign that she's an Eirf. Iser sees a disgruntled Lelia who only longs to free herself from imprisonment and see her daughter. One day at work, Lang tells Makia that the royal palace is looking for her after Lelia asks Iser to find Makia. Lang offers to bring her back to the Helm village, even confessing to her, but she refuses, saying she doesn't want to trouble him. Once back at their house, Ariel and Makia get into a brief scuffle. Eventually, he tells her that he doesn't think of her as his mother anymore. The next day, Ariel talks to Lang so he can enlist in the royal army and get strong to protect Makia. However, Makia overhears her son cry out of frustration and eventually decides that they should go their separate ways. Lang visits Makia's house, only to discover that she's gone. Elsewhere, Makia is actually in a secret hideout after being kidnapped by Krim. Some time has passed, and Ariel is going to be a father. Dita, the girl who used to tease him in Helm, is now his wife and is about to give birth to their first child. Suddenly, war breaks out and Ariel is needed by the army. Dita goes into labor just as he leaves. Somewhere in the chaos, Krim and Makia make their way to meet Lelia once more. Krim makes it to her first, and the two briefly reunite. Before leaving, Lelia says that she wants to meet her daughter, which upsets Krim. He doesn't understand how Medmel can be of importance to her since her existence was forced upon Lelia. Unable to accept how things have turned out, Krim decides to end it all with Lelia, intending to commit double suicide. Before he can get to her, Iser shoots Krim and saves Lelia. As Krim bleeds on the castle grounds, Makia runs through the forest in an attempt to flee the battle going on around her. She hears a woman in distress in the distance and walks toward the sound. Makia finds Dita in labor and helps her give birth. Meanwhile, Ariel survives the war and Makia helps tend to his wounds and reconciles with him. Lang finds her once more, and Makia instructs him to take Lang back to his house, stating that it's where he belongs. Ariel calls out to Makia and calls her mom for the last time before Makia leaves him for good. Makia finds her way to the castle grounds and sees Krim and the remaining Renato. Meanwhile, Lelia finally meets her daughter for a brief moment, much to her delight. Makia then appears on top of the Renato and instructs Lelia to jump. She does as she's told and Makia flies them both out of there. As they leave, Lelia bids her daughter a tearful farewell and instructs her only child to forget about her. Out of sight, Lelia cries, but Makia reassures her that she'll never forget about her child. Back at home, Ariel sees his child for the first time. Dita eventually apologizes to Ariel for teasing him when they were kids, but Ariel reassures her that he loves her and to look forward into the future because now they have a family to think of. Years have passed, and Makia meets with Ariel once more, who is now an old man on his deathbed. She takes his hands in hers, remarking that he's lived his life to the fullest. Still remembering her, Ariel welcomes his mom home one last time. On her way out of the village, she meets with the half-Eirf merchant from before, and he takes her back to their new Eirf village. Makia remembers her life with Ariel, saying that despite the pain, she's glad she's loved her son because it made her happy. And that concludes the touching story of Makia and Ariel. We hope you liked this one as much as we did, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below to let us know what you think. We'll see you again real soon.